hay muchos que usted ve que arrancan en 1, pero no están calculando que van a comenzar en 1. Hay muchos que comienzan en 2, que hacen 1 y 2.
That your basic step can start on the 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the music, and all are okay. That also means that your tap, touch, or syncopated step can occur on the 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on when you start.
Welcome everybody to this live stream on Bachata dance timing in the Dominican Republic.
Porque lo importante es que usted vaya al ritmo de la música.
Claro.
Lo importante es que su corazón sienta que usted va al ritmo de lo que usted escucha.
I had my light bulb moment when I was like, wait a minute, they're not dancing all morning, they're wrong, when I was first starting. And then I said, after I saw so many different videos, and I said to myself, Bachata comes from the Dominican Republic, and I'm watching Dominicans dance, and I'm watching Dominicans dancing to Bachata, and I'm watching Dominicans dancing to Bachata in the Dominican Republic, and I'm supposed to tell them that they're wrong to their own music in their own country. Yeah, probably not. That's not gonna happen. So that just opened my eyes like, you can actually dance on all the counts.
Hey everybody, so welcome to this live. I was just live over on Instagram, and we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper now here on YouTube, specifically focusing on Bachata dance timing in the Dominican Republic. And we're going to get into, if you're a dancer, and you're new to it, what might be the next steps, possible, strategies for exploring dance timing if you're living in a community, if you're not in the Dominican Republic. Now, if you are in the Dominican Republic, and able to social dance there, that's a whole nother path. And so we'll get into that. We'll also get into a little bit into strategies for dance teachers, bachata dance teachers, and dance teachers in general. So definitely welcome. We'll be exploring a variety of videos as well, looking at dance couples, breaking down kind of some of their steps and the timing, and I'll be taking questions. So, we got into a lot of it on Instagram, but here on YouTube, I'm able to read the chat and take questions easier. And so, if you do think of something along the way, please feel free. There's, this is a fairly involved topic as far as dance timing, and interestingly, this is something that's not just unique to bachata social dance in the Dominican Republic. This is, this issue, these variations of timing also exist in other genres of dance. We might say son, Cuban casino, cumbia, cha-cha-cha, salsa. And so a lot of these social dances, depending on the countries, cultures, communities you're in, there are variations. Timing can vary and be different from how it may be most widely taught around the world. And so some of these kind of standardizations of timing, when it's being taught around the world, come because just the process of teaching, the way we structure our classes and the limited amount of time we have, et cetera, those things oftentimes make teaching on one timing easier. And so that's one of the reasons why it's become more popular, but we'll get into that a little bit. So let's start off by looking at a social dance video that I filmed in the Dominican Republic some years ago. And in this video, you're going to see a variety of dancers who are dancing on, in a sense, we can say different timings. But so if we look at the bachata foundational step, which is 3 steps and a touch, right? Or a tap or a syncopation, but you're sort of marking that fourth step. So 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and touch. Step, 2, 3, and touch. Step, 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 touch. So if that's our foundational step, what's happening, you know, when you have a bachata song that's 4/4 timing, you know, bachata is 4/4 time music, so it's got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and within that count, the instruments have their roles that they play, and so, you know, dancers in the Dominican Republic, you can start your first of 3 steps. You can start your foundational step on the 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the music, and so within this video, if that's a little bit confusing, we will get into it more, but let's watch a social dance video first and I'll kind of break it down for you.
Causar heridas, pretenderte que no estés a mi lado, y más porque ahora estoy aquí enamorado, y me siento destrozado, creo que estoy muerto en vida. Ayúdame a vivir un poco amor.
So as you can see, you know, if you look for the dancers where they're touching, different couples have started their step at different points in the music. The couple in the middle is started on 3. 3, right? 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, touch. 3, 4, 1, touch.
Siento muy cerca mi final. Puedes salvarme si tú quieres.
So let me know in the chat if you've seen this. Hey Ramon, great to hear from you. Hey Aubrey, Denise, all of you. You know, I know quite a few of you are familiar with this, so we can get kind of into some of the kind of more in-depth stuff soon. If you're new to this thing, let me know if you have any questions. But to review that dance, that social dance video again, so that couple in the middle, the gentleman with the white hat, that couple has started their dance. If we consider the start of our step, the first of the 3 steps, they've started their step on 3, so the 3rd beat of the music, okay? And so they're touching or tapping or marking on 2, right? On the 2nd beat of the music. And you know, let's look also, when understanding this, let's look at them again and check out the shape they're dancing. So right now they're dancing in place. Now they've got a real tiny, almost box, right? Little rotation. So a box step variation. And so, you know, when you're starting to think about this and, you know, you're like, well, does that musically make sense? Well, they're coming forward within that timing. They're coming forward and back. If you're dancing in the box, you're coming forward and back on the 1, on that first beat. And so there is a special connection and emphasis on it. Now let's look at the couple over here on the left side of the screen. So the gentleman in the red hat, the woman in the yellow blouse, they've started their step on the 4th beat of the music, so on the 4. So what does that mean? Their 2nd step is on the 1 of the music, and their touch or tap is on the 3. So check out that couple again. 4-1, 4-1, 4-1.
Porque en mi mundo todo es soledad. Escucha mi mensaje, por favor. Y es que mi sueño
So that's social dancing in the Dominican Republic. And when you look at a social dance floor full of couples, you're going to see people dancing on multiple timings, right? You know, they're all expressing the music, but they've just started their step at a different point in the music, okay? And very interestingly, you know, I would say, you know, I haven't done a count, but probably certainly the majority of the time that I've seen, like 80% of the time, let's say 75% of the time, the follow is the one starting the dance. And so the follow is thus the person determining the timing. So as a lead, if I lead bachata, so as a lead in the Dominican Republic, I've got to be pretty versatile. If I do that, I'm waiting for the follow to start and then picking up that timing that they started on. So, you know, I might dance with one person, they've started on the second beat, on 2. Another dancer, the next song dance may have started on 3. So, you know, versatility in timing ultimately is really important when dancing bachata in the Dominican Republic. And, you know, if you only feel comfortable dancing, starting on the 1, touching on the 4, you can dance and have a great time in the Dominican Republic, for sure. But your partner ultimately, whether you're lead or follow, because, you know, the leads do start and determine timings at times too, even though it's generally the norm or the etiquette for the follow to start. Again, it's not a rule. It's not a spoken rule I've ever heard, but it's just what you see. But as far as that goes, that versatility in dance, so it's not necessary to dance and feel comfortable on the multiple timings, but, you know, otherwise your partner is going to have to adapt to your timing, which is fine. And, you know, I'd like to share real quick just my story. I studied abroad for a year in the Dominican Republic. I already social danced during this time. This was in 2004. Was already familiar with bachata. But, you know, I really learned bachata I had a few salsa classes and things like that, but it was more social dancing. But somehow, you know, I didn't grow up dancing bachata. I didn't grow up in the Dominican Republic. So I had it in my mind and I really wasn't thinking about it. It just musically was making sense at the time, maybe because of my also dancing a little bit of salsa, to start on the 1, touch on the 4. So that's what I did. And I did that the whole year. Then I did the documentary film. I lived with Joanne over the course of a year. During that period of time, I still wasn't consciously aware that people were dancing on multiple timings in the Dominican Republic. And when I look back now, I can think of dances, specific dances where my partner had to adjust to my timing, you know, where they had started on another timing and I kind of, you know, made them, not consciously knowing, but they had to adjust to my timing, starting on the 1, tapping on the 4. So, you know, it was a few years into going there, doing documentary work, starting to film the dancers more, where I realized what was going on. And then I needed to, in a sense, kind of relearn my dance a little bit and kind of break down my understanding of what I was hearing, the instruments, and the roles in order to be able to take a step back and now feel comfortable dancing on all timings. And actually my preference, if I'm starting and it's giving most of the time on most songs, my preference is I start on 3. I start the first of my 3 steps on 3. And so then in the box step, I'd be coming forward on 1, back on 1, 3, right? So I'm going 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. Okay, that's my preference now, but I feel comfortable on the variety of timings. So let's watch another video here.
Desde que te fue mi mami,
So can anybody see where are they touching? What timing? So they've started on 3 as well. 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. But I just talked about my preference. 3, 4, 1. Now listen to the bass line. Now this was filmed in a little colmado in El Campo near Joan Soriano's house, his parents' house. Okay, so let's watch another social dance video, you know, before questions, see if you have any questions. This next video I took recently, late 2000, just a couple months ago in Santo Domingo in an event called El Corrito Bachatero. And it was a great event. So this event has people of all ages, dancers of a variety of ages, but a lot of young dancers in their 20s. And so in the social dance floor here, you're going to see, you know, just like any other social dance floor there, you're going to see a number of different timings. This couple again, they've started on 3, 1. So they're coming forward and back on the 1, the first beat of the music, right? Now that couple, they've started on 1 and they're touching on 4. So that's the most common timing that's taught at classes and festivals around the world. 1, 2, 3, touch. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This couple as well. Starting on 1, touching on 4. Now this couple, they're dancing on 2. So they're touching on 1. No, actually they're on 3, I'm sorry. 3, 4, 1. This couple in the white, starting on 1, touching on 4. The couple next to him is on 3. So dancing side by side, but on different timing. Same song. Couple in front, dancing on 1, starting on 1, touching on 4. Middle couple dancing on 3 again. And the couple to the right. They're both on 3. 1, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. Done. Listen to the bass line. So that particular step, for me, really fits well with the bass line. Now the couple on the right, they're dancing on the 4. They started on the 4. This couple started on the 1, touching on the 4. And they started on the 3. Now that was an example of the lead instigated that start, I believe. So it's a really organic thing how you start a dance. Nice, that middle guy, he's on the 2, he started on the 2, he's touching on the 1. 1, 1, 1. Middle couple started on the 4. 1, 4, 1, 4, 1. And this guy dancing with 2 beers in the hand. He had that even before the camera was on. He wasn't trying to show off for the camera. Right? So, you know, any questions on that? But really interesting. We saw, you know, we were kind of focusing on whoever was in the frame, whoever was the, you know, I was focusing on the most, and we saw every timing, you know, just in that short video, we saw every timing represented, right? We saw 1 multiple times. We saw starting on the 3 multiple times. We saw someone that started on the 2, starting on the 4. And this isn't even including everybody that was dancing around. So, you know, within each of those videos, and if you were really to break down and see, okay, what's going on timing wise, each of those social dance videos you could watch over and over and go around and watch the dancers even in the background and see, okay, what timing are they on? And, you know, sometimes you can see dancers walking into frame and you can then see who started or how did they start, or, you know, and so there's all that information within those videos. Now, Yenny and Alejandro here have started on 4. 4-1. 4-1. So their second step now, that's such a great video. You know, I filmed that. It's next to a club and they're dancing in the street, you know, lit by car lights, lit by a single bulb. And just to determine, okay, what timing they're on is kind of challenging because, you know, they're each individually expressing the music. They're each doing whether footwork, body movements, and they're not staying in what you might say is a basic step too long. They're basic, they've got the foundation, they're grounded in it, but they're also adding these adornments and there's rotations involved. So it can be hard to kind of figure out, you know, what they're on. And, you know, when it comes to dancing on the 4, whether teaching it, dancing it, it's not necessarily dancing on the 4, but you're starting your 3 steps, the first of your 3 steps on the 4, on the 4th beat. So in relation to the bongo, taki tiki taki puki, taki tiki taki puki, puki. So you're starting your first of 3 steps on that sound, right? Puki. And there's of course other things happening in the music on that 4th beat, but that's one fairly consistent sound that happens on the 4th beat of the music. And so that's where your first of, when you're on this timing here that we're going to watch again, you're starting that on that period of the song. But what happens after the 4? What's the beat after 4 in a bachata song? It's 1. And so your second step on this timing is happening on the first beat of the music. And of course, on the first beat of the music, you have the bass line, dum, 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 dum. You know, you have that full full bass line, that one, plus you have a lot of times the lyrics, the song, kind of that emphasis. You've got the bright sound of the bongo, tak, tak, buki, tak, so you have a lot happening on the one too. And if you notice their second step, there's a lot of emphasis, right? So they're musically, even though they haven't started the first of three steps on the one, they're still musically expressing the one in its own way, right? So let's watch it again and see if you see kind of what I mean as far as that. 4-1, 4-1. So hopefully you kind of saw that, but I've got a variety of dance videos where they've started on the 4, and sometimes it's actually hard to tell because there's that movement, especially when you're in a forward and back shape or foundational shape. It has the appearance still of being on the 1. Now we have a great question here comment from Jason. Jason says, I've been dancing bachata for years, but I never knew about the counting. It's just organic. So do you actually count and tell what count a person is on? So in the Dominican Republic, generally, no, the dancers aren't counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're not consciously counting, dancing on all these timing variations. If you're trying to count, is almost impossible. Now, if you're a teacher, if you're kind of breaking it down like I am with practice, you can do it. But when I'm dancing, I'm not counting numbers. I can, because I've kind of studied and I broke it down, I'm aware of sort of what timing I'm on and in relation to the sounds. But really, you're tuning in to your partner and you're tuning in to the music and the instruments and the connections the instruments have together. So you're really dancing. So the way you grew up dancing, organic, not counting, feeling the music. Later on, you wrote that your preference is to come in on the 3rd step, which I mentioned. That's my preference now. Especially in a box pattern, because it has a really nice feeling coming forward and back on that first beat. But again, it's not thought out. It's not something you need to kind of overly think, intellectualize. People do have their preferences, but as we mentioned earlier watching the social dance videos, because both follows the majority of time, but both follows and leads can determine timing and will determine timing in the Dominican Republic. That versatility is a plus, when dancing, because this partner, they may have started on 1, and then I may dance with the same person the next song, and they may start on a different timing on that song because of their relationship to that song. Or maybe they've already started dancing before they're even on the dance floor, right? They're at the table, they're already starting dancing. So who starts, when they start, all of that, there's a lot of more variations when social dancing in the Dominican Republic and in the Caribbean. And it's come through teaching. It's not wrong, but through teaching and through some of these other kind of communities and cultures, it's become more standardized now for the lead to start, and for the lead to start with their left foot, and for the lead to start on 1. So things have become standardized, but we talked about different genres of dance earlier. I was just at the Reno Latin Dance Fest. There was 2 dance, Jorge and Indira from Cuba, Cuban dance teachers, teaching excellent stuff. But in their cha-cha-cha class, he mentioned, he's like, well, you know, actually social dancing, cha-cha-cha, when starting, you can start that way, you can start that direction. There's not when in social dance within that, there's not that standard of, okay, lead start with the left, start that direction, okay? So all of that really affects timing as well. You know, are you starting with an out step? Are you starting with an in step? Are you starting that direction, that direction? So all of that factors in, and that kind of standardization doesn't exist. And it doesn't mean dancers are not highly connected to the music and that they don't have an understanding and real experiential understanding of the music, and that they're not responding to the different sounds, the rhythm at all. You know, it's not a matter of being, you know, whether someone's educated on the music or dance. It's a different way of learning. It's a different way of experiencing it. So this next video here, this is a good one. This is, well, actually, we'll start with this one right here. This next one. So I want you, there's a lot of different ways you deal with, let's say, whether it's someone falling off the music, right? Making a mistake in their step, you try something that's beyond you or something, or you get distracted, or you stop dancing, you stop talking to someone, maybe the music skips, right? So there's different ways a dancer may handle that, depending on what culture or community they are in. So watch this. I'm not going to say anything at first, and see if you can keep that in your mind while watching this next couple. So, okay, we're gonna have to watch that again. Someone write in the comments if you feel you got the answer. Did you notice anything related to this topic of timing that happened within this last dance couple we saw? I really would love to see what you think. So first, musically, what did we hear? Let's see. Hey, Aubrey, you got it, I think. Let's see. They just plowed through the music skipping, and their timing went from 3 to 1. Yes, you got it. You're good. I think you're a dance teacher, right? Exactly. So in this case, it wasn't one of them making the mistake. It could have been. One of them could have skipped a step. That happens. But in this case, it wasn't. Like, they were solid rhythmically, and the DJ was doing, their thing with kind of adding this effect. And so in some ways it was a DJ mistake, and the music skipped, and they went from dancing on 3, where they're starting their first step on 3, right? To once the music skipped, now they're starting, they haven't started, but now they're dancing on 1. So their first of 3 steps now is on 1, and they're touching or tapping on 4. Let's watch it one more time. Listen for that music skip, and check out the timing. If you're looking for how do you determine their timing, when you're learning to dance it or break it down, ask yourself, whatever timing, however you experience bachata, like, what do you hear? What connects you? What do you ground with? And so for me, very early on, even before I was dancing multiple timings, I sort of internalized this 4th beat of the bongo, right? Taki tiki taki puki, taki tiki taki puki, puki. That sound, that lower, you're hitting the bigger drum head, the lower drum, book. That sound, I internalize that, and if you're dancing on one, that's happening on your tap. But if you change your timing, that sound is still there. And so I've internalized that sound. I've also internalized, the bass guitar, where you've got dum 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 dum. That boom, that's one, right? So I know whatever timing I'm on, I just hear that. I like that. I hear the whole song. But knowing where that is in relation to it really helps to determine quickly. So now I can quickly see what, timing people are danced on. So do your own exploration in bachata, and it really comes down to figuring out, like, what do you notice? What do you personally, like, whether you consciously think about it or not, but like, what do you connect with in a song, and once you kind of figure that out and figure out, it helps if it's somewhat consistent, like the rhythm of the bongo or the rhythm of the bass. Those things tend to be a little more consistent than, let's say, a lead guitar or requinto, which may have more variety in its expression and play and kind of where it comes in. So figure that out, and it'll help you to determine this. But let's watch this couple one more time. So right now they're on the 3. Listen for the DJ mistake. Now they're on 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They didn't miss a beat, and both are musical. So good job, Aubrey, getting that so quick right off the bat. Another thing about dance timing. So we're going to watch a couple more couples here. Let's start here. So this was a dance contest I filmed in the Dominican Republic. A lot of screaming. So they're dancing, they've started on the 1, touching on the 4. Now this couple has started on the 4, right? 4, 1, 4, 1. And they're touching on the 3. Okay, so now again, pay attention to timing. He's on 4. Well, I cut that one too short. So in this, I have a longer video where you see the whole thing. Another kind of cultural thing. So up until this point, we're seeing people dance in couples, couple dancing. And when dancing in couples, there's often the question, well, okay, you can dance on a variety of timings. Can I do all the timings within one song? Or can I do multiple timings? Can I switch timings in a song on purpose? Thought it out. And that's not generally the norm, okay? So it's, unless there's a mistake, like with the music, or, sometimes you make a mistake in footwork and you kind of plow through, you follow, you continue on without looking like you made a mistake. You continue on a different timing. But, when you are starting on a certain timing, you're trying to keep on that timing, right? Both partners are staying on that timing through the duration of the song and finishing that out. But we just saw a solo dancer when you film or when you watch or when you dance, solo dancing, when you're just jamming on your own, you have no partner. It's much more common, even among really good dancers, especially if they're social dancing. They dance on multiple timings on the time all the time. It's much more common to see them, not always consciously, but they may switch timings through the song when they're just jamming on their own solo dancing. And this isn't really that unusual if you don't have that rule of starting on 1, tapping on 4 in your head. Like if you watch yourself dance to, let's say, maybe a pop song, hip hop song, where you have all these different directions you're going. Let's say a genre of music that you don't typically social dance to and that you haven't learned in classes, you'll find that I wouldn't be surprised if you find that your sort of timing expression and what you hear through the song does tend to vary more. Okay, so that you will see with individual dancers when you're just you're in the colmado or you're in the patio, or you're sweeping up the kitchen and you're dancing, you may have a lot of freedom to change timings, and you'll see that even amongst really solid dancers. So, but that's not the norm when dancing in couples and social dancing. Generally, you're staying on the same timing and you're not consciously switching between timings. Let's check out another video here. Okay, wait. This is a good one. So we in this, I was filming from a little table over here, and the gentleman that comes in knows I am filming. Not everybody, is paying attention, but he does. And so he's going to kind of show off, and you'll notice him sometimes looking at the camera. But let's see who starts this dance. Okay, so they're going to walk out on the dance floor, and they're just going to, without kind of making too big of a deal about it, they're going to start. But let's see who starts the timing and who picks it up. Here they come from the left. Do we have a guess? Do we need to see? That was a subtle one. That was smooth. I have a guess, and I think this particular one you can't say 100%. We're going to watch it one more time. But does anybody have a guess on who, or an opinion on who started that dance? Let's see it again. They're going to come in from the left. We got Ramon saying it thinks it was the lead. This one actually is challenging. I think it was the follow, but they started. Jason thinks it was the guy, so I'm in the minority here. Aubrey says I think it was the follow. Okay, we got 2 follow, 2 lead. We got to watch it one more. Yes, Isolde, it's a tie. You can break the tie if you give us an opinion. Okay, Evita, now we've got follows. One thing that's so cool, we're going to watch it one more time. But one way of how they started was rock, touch, and then the step starts. And I think she started the rock touch, and he's not even looking down at the feet. He's kind of looking off. I think he felt that rock touch, that sway, and then started the 3 steps. So I think she started it because he felt that rock touch. But that's another way people stop. Very common is not to just kind of, your first motion isn't necessarily those 3 steps. It might be we're out on the dance floor, step, touch, and now we're with our 3 steps. So you're sort of a rock, touch, and then begin, and that's what they do. Now, who was moving first? It's hard to say. Let's watch it one more time. Bah. I gotta watch it one more time. Yeah, I think it was her that she rocked and touched. And so interestingly, because she rocked and touched with her left right, because she was already walking on the dance floor. They selected that spot. It happened super organically. So you see, you know, with timing, how organic it is. If he in that situation, or her, because there's still debate, would have been set on just one timing, they wouldn't have started organically like that. They would have waited till it come around, and yeah, they would have had a good dance, but it wouldn't have started quite so smoothly. Welcome, Carlendra Frank. Thank you. I'm glad you follow. Oh, good. Jason, Ramon. Well, I shot the video, so I've watched it before, so I kind of was cheating there. But let's continue watching that and see if anybody else. But on this couple, see how many timings you can find on the dance floor. Can we find all 4 dance timings, or couples that have started on the 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the music? I've got 2 already that have started on the 2 and are touching on the 1. Of course, the couple we watched, 4. I like the way that guy dances with his little... Here we go. So I think Aubrey, I can't remember who, but thanks Denise for coming and for tuning in, and we'll see you at a future live stream for sure. What happened on that break? Let's see how they responded, because this Prince Royce song, you know, there is sort of that break, and that's what we're talking about. There can be a different cultural interpretation of a break, especially in, you know, the more modern era bachata songs being produced in New York, in the Bronx, etc., and everywhere, you know, and with that kind of a pop influence. So, you know, how do you mark the break, but you keep movement, you dance through it? Do you stop motion? That depends on your community, how you've learned, where you're at. So let's see what they do. We're going to go back in time a little bit, rewind it, and here we go again. So they're on the 4, 4, 1, 4, 1. We're watching the woman in the orange tight. Here's the break. 5. It wasn't a complete break. Let's watch it again. But it's a little break, right? It's kind of this, yeah. They're on the same timing. They slowed down. So they marked, you could see them. You could see their motion got smaller. The rotation got smaller. They recognized what was happening musically, but they didn't stop, hold, and then restart, right? So that's a difference. So, any questions up until this point? You know, it's my intention to do more of these lives, both here and on Instagram, talking about timing, because it's, for me, it's one of the, you know, big differences that I see between how bachata is taught in classes, at festivals, events around the world, and how bachata is social danced. And again, like I said, there's not a right or wrong way. There are different norms, but I do hope that there can be more kind of understanding of it. At the very least, I'd like teachers to start sharing the information that, there are variations of timing. So, if you're a dance teacher or you're a dancer, but let's say a dance teacher, and you're starting a class and you're saying, here's the basic step. We're going to start on the first beat of the music. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you're teaching that basic step, and maybe you continue it through the class, maybe you take 1 minute, 30 seconds to mention, we're dancing on this particular timing. And within this community, this is perhaps more common, but in the Dominican Republic, there are multiple timings, and just to plant that seed in their mind. So when they're dancing videos, but even in their own socials, because I live here in Colorado, and talking to Dominicans in Colorado a number of times, I talked to someone who says, yeah, well, social dancing here, but someone is trying to correct this or that, perhaps correct the timing, correct the shape of the step. And so it's things like that as dance teachers, we hope to avoid with our students eventually. And again, you only know as much as you know and as much as you're taught, but hopefully, we can share some of this information. So at the very least, there's not that, a student isn't leaving the class calling someone wrong when they're not actually wrong. And they're not wrong musically. They're certainly not wrong, socially, because of that, just the roots and history of bachata music and dance. So that's a place to start. How you kind of get into teaching multiple timings within class is going to demand kind of a more in-depth live stream specifically for teachers. And so we're going to do that here in the future, make it something specifically for teachers that already have the foundation of kind of understanding where we're coming from, but are looking for techniques, ways that to perhaps structure their class, structure their, whether it's music selection, kind of all those details, because I will acknowledge it can be a challenge to teach this, especially to multi-level classes and classes that have never been exposed to this idea before, who have learned bachata. Maybe they've been dancing it 4 weeks, maybe they've been dancing it a year, but they've been dancing it on one timing, always starting on one, touching on 4. Again, I want to say that timing's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's not really anything wrong with a community having kind of going in that route. I'm not criticizing that, but I would like to see more of these variations taught, and kind of really social dancing from the Dominican Republic and all its diversity, essence, figuring out ways in, if Isolde's still on the chat, we've talked about that, and many others, my colleagues, have taught about that. How do you bring in some of these elements of organic social dance from the Dominican Republic? How do you bring it into a classroom setting? Because of course there are advantages to learning dance through class. You can learn certain things perhaps quicker. You can learn aspects of the culture and dance that you're unfamiliar with from growing up around it. But how do we bring some of these essence, organic elements, richness into a dance class? And so to get into that's going to need more time and more sort of a more thorough look at it, breakdown in these videos. Real quick, whoever we still have on here, let's see, we've got a question. TDS. Sometimes I try to dance on other timings, but I keep getting back to the one. It's an automatism that is so hard to get rid of. Yes. Yeah, see, thank you so much for sharing that. And that reminds me of my journey, which I am happy. I'm a great example of this because I learned bachata not really through classes, but I learned it through social dancing. And in the Dominican Republic, I was exposed to it before with, youth, Latin American youth from soccer teams in Washington, D.C. before that. But really, I kind of just learned it in a more organic way. But somehow, because, I didn't grow up with dance and I didn't grow up with that kind of social situation, I just thought, without even analyzing or thinking it, I got it in my head and my body to start on one and touch on four. And I became very familiar with that and very solid, like rhythmically. I could stay on that beat, and I felt different parts of the music. I felt the bongo, and it made so much sense on that beat, and the bass, everything made sense on that when I finally realized and started going down look at the social dance floor. There's all these timings are starting at different points in the music. Okay, I want to start doing that and sharing that or teaching that. And so for me to do it was because I had already danced bachata and was around it for years. I mean, that's what's kind of embarrassing about it, that I had been in the Dominican Republic for so long before realizing it. But I was so solid on that timing, I thought, which is where a lot of us are. If you're dance teachers, if you're dancers, if you're performers, you're really solid on that one timing. And so it almost takes a couple steps back, it feels like, sometimes to break that down. So my suggestions might be, well, start with one timing. Let's stay on the third beat because it fits so nice with the bass. You've got doom 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 step step step. Maybe start with one timing, figure that out, and move on. That's one way to approach it. But again, start with, if you're so solid TDS on the one, you might need to figure out why you're so solid. What do you hear? What do you connect to? And those elements, when you figure out what you connect to, you just kind of say, well, if I'm on the three, where are they now? And that was what I did. That's what I had to do. And kind of took some time. Another route is a pleasurable route, but not always a possible route for everybody. And that's through social dancing in the Dominican Republic or in communities where there's multiple timings. And if you're super solid on one timing, even doing that social dancing, because I've seen videos of this as well, you'll probably find yourself at times falling off when you start trying to do your footwork and your moves and everything you're so comfortable with, you fall off, and you'll find yourself falling off to the timing and reverting to the timing and bringing your partner with you back to the one. And so that's another route. Over time, you will become used to that. So another route is instead of analyzing it, breaking it down, which I kind of had to do being here in Colorado, even though I was filming in the DR a lot as well during that time. But a lot of times during those trips, I was filming and not dancing, dancing. So you may have to, if you can either go like the social dance immersion route, and again, it may be a little tricky and messy at times, or you can go kind of break it down, or a combination of both would be probably ideal too. So different routes to do that. Let's see, we got Ramon, 100%. There's a clear difference between the festival environment and place of origin. It's great the instructors share insights about this from their original locations in different times. Yes, thank you so much, Ramon, and so happy you're out there spreading the word on things. And yeah, it's not, there's really great things about both communities or both places of a variety of places of origins. You know, there's a lot we can go into here, but I oftentimes share in my presentation as well. Just, you know, everybody knows I've really spent a lot of time as far as trying to gather stories on video, both musicians, dancers, and culture stories, and kind of sharing those stories via video or via presentation. And sometimes I'll talk about it as well, but sharing those stories and the roots and the living culture is really important to me. But I also understand part of bachata's history, and part of it's a living form, and bachata music is loved, you know, as a song spreads around the world. Let's say, you know, this Romeo song takes off and it's played by a radio station in Venezuela, and it's played in a radio station in Bolivia, and then one in Croatia, and then, you know, music can spread, and even if you're not familiar with that genre, it has the ability to touch you deeply. And when you're touched by it, you want to respond to it. Maybe you listen to it, but maybe you get up, maybe you start moving, trying to figure out ways to express it. And so, you know, there's a natural and organic change that can happen within dance when communities encounter music and have to respond and engage with it using what they already have. So, you know, in Venezuela, you already have a variety of traditional dances, social dances. And now here comes some bachata songs, and it's only natural to start maybe adding some of those elements in. So there's not necessarily anything wrong with fusion per se. It's just sort of how it's done at times, and to what extent, and are people recognizing and looking toward the culture from where the music and dance comes from, where they can as well. We've got, thank you for your comment. I also find it more relaxing for beginner students when they don't have to find the one in the music, but just start dancing and focus on stepping and tapping. Hello from Germany. Thank you so much for joining us. And that's an amazing comment. I teach at times at universities, or I've taught at libraries, I've taught at senior centers, you know. So for all you teachers out there, there's more besides kind of people looking to learn Latin dance. There's also a whole community of people that just maybe they don't want to go in super deep in it, but they, you know, they want to learn about culture, dance, music. And so this reminds me of, let's say, a university class. You know, you go into, let's say, a cultural anthropology class, and I'm teaching on, you know, bachata dance and music, and then we have 30 minutes to get up and learn the step. Just learn some basics, maybe in partners. Oftentimes in classes like that, with students that I know have no background in the dance at all, I will, like you're saying, I'll put on a song. Maybe I'll have people close their eyes. I'll show them the 3 steps and a touch, and then I'll have them close their eyes and start where they feel ready. That's another way to explore these variations, is instead of starting your students always, this can be in partners or alone, but instead of always starting your students, you know, counting them in 5, 6, 7, you know, you can give them the freedom to start. And that especially works well with students who haven't had a lot of training on one timing. It also, of course, works really well in communities that already have a social dance scene. I mean, a Dominican social community. I taught once, or gave the presentation at the Dominican Students Association in New York, CUNY College. And so, you know, after the presentation, we got up and we did some line dances, you know, and then danced in partners a little bit. But a community like that too, because they're already around bachata with their parents, their grandparents, you know, these are college students. And so they're going to be open. You know, you don't need to count them in on every step. You know, you can maybe give them something to work on. Let's work on the box step, and then put the music on, and people start on their own. You know, you don't even have to say leads or follows start, just see what happens. So great comment, and hello, glad you're watching from Germany. Got another question here, or a comment. I instinctively danced on the other times, but thought it was wrong because they never taught that in classes. It wasn't until I started Jessica Taylor's class, yay for the love of bachata, class, that I learned it was actually fine. Yeah, I mean, that's where, you know, for one, it's a shame that you thought it was wrong during that time, because it wasn't, right? You know, you instinctively already had that connection and were dancing on other timings, and it's not musically wrong. You know, that's something I hope to get into more later, but it's not wrong. And, you know, so a class like Jessica's, even if it's just that, you know, that little bit of info, not only for you, but also for other students in the class, so they don't go out and dance with someone and perhaps with a word or something make someone else feel wrong for something that's not wrong. You know, there's differences, there's variations. So that's a great comment. It's like learning a language. One thing is the classroom, but then you go out in the calle and bam, like Ramon says, it's the street that teaches you the real thing. Yes, yeah, very similar to language, you know, and all these dialects, and even within the same towns and communities, we all have different accents, we have different vocabulary, we have different ways that we express based on our upbringing, based on our past history, based on kind of how we want to show ourselves and be perceived, all these things. So it's very similar, I think, to language learning as well. Isolde, exploring other timings opens up for several ways to interpret and feel the music. And that's one of the great things. You can have the same song, you know, and it's a whole, every song is different. You know, you have the same song and every dance to it you have different partners. You may be feeling different that day, right? You know, it's a love song on one day, or it's a breakup song on that day. And depending on your personal experiences, your mood, you're going to experience it different. But that timing variations, like we're talking about, adds another layer to that. You know, it adds, you know, and again, a lot of times you're not even consciously thinking about it when you're social dancing. You may not, once you're in the flow, in the groove, you may not even need to be aware of what timing you're on. You're just solid, just going with it, exploring the music. But it definitely keeps things fresh in that way. Can I ask a quick question? Do we know how people used to dance bachata in the past 80s and 90s in the DR? Oh, this is getting good now. So, well, I have, you know, I've seen older videos. I wasn't filming. So my first time in the DR was 2004, and I started filming there solid in 2007. But I have seen videos, you know, past old concert footage. You know, you can find like live TV shows and old concert footage on YouTube from the 90s, you know, Anthony Santos in the early days, you know, so certainly from the early 90s. And a colleague of mine who helped mentor me, but she wrote the books Bachata Social Dancing, Deborah Pacini Hernandez. You know, she was doing her research in the late 80s and early 90s, and hers was more focused on the music and history, but she does have some videos as well. And so yes, we don't have tons of, like, you know, I've never seen a video from, let's say, the 70s, or, you know, dancing to a Luis Segura song from let's say the late 60s or something like that. But then some of the clues we can get as far as how it was danced. I know you're asking about the 80s and 90s, but let's go back, because I've asked myself, well, how was it danced in the 60s and 70s and 80s? And just real quick, of course, when it was first in the 60s, when bachata was first being recorded, it wasn't referred to as bachata at that time. It was called bolero, música de guitarra. It's now looking back that we say, okay, that was early or the first bachata. So the term bachata wasn't used until the 70s, and then it sort of became more and more used as the genre of music and dance. But that's another topic. But how was it danced 60s, 70s, and 80s? So what I've often done is I've asked Luis Segura, actually, and Adilio Paredes. So the pioneers, the legends that were creating the music, that were playing in the 60s and the 70s and still are, what do you remember about the crowds, about the dancers, about this or that? How was it? And, when you ask those type of questions, you have to kind of spread your net wide, because memory's a funny and tricky thing. And, if I were to ask you, well, how was bachata danced 15 years ago in your community, you'd have to think, but you might be able to give some insights. And so from those questions, I have gotten insights. I've also gotten a lot of insights from watching older dancers, dancers that are in their 70s, 80s, 60s, not super old, but dancers that were dancing in the late 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s. Watch how they dance bachata now. And certainly, do we all evolve or adapt and kind of change stylistically? Of course, we have to adapt to new things, but you get a lot of insight from watching someone like Joanne's dad, Kande. I have a lot of videos of him, watching him dance bachata, because like he told me in an interview, he was like, before bachata existed, what I was dancing, when he was in his late teens, early 20s, what I was dancing was bolero, son montuno, merengue de accordion, I was dancing these things already. And then came bachata, right? Or then came this guitar music, and later it was called bachata. And so watch him dance, watch people of his generation dance, and one generation pass, and you can get a lot of insights on how bachata was danced during those times. Plus, yes, there are videos and concert videos from the early 90s, from the mid 90s. A lot of times they're not focused. You're not going to be able to find them with keywords like bachata dance 1990s. But if you look for musician live music or show, searching in Spanish, if you look and look at some of these old recordings, and then as the camera pans around and sweeps to the social dancing, you're able to see structure and timing stuff and the way people dance. So good. That's a good research opportunity for some of you guys. Check Blas Duran in introducing pistas de merengue into bachata, big step in the bachata evolution in DR. Awesome. Yes, merengue, of course, heavily influenced bachata music and bachata dance, and continues to do so. So, one more time. Everybody, if you have any more questions, please let me know. Otherwise, leave the questions, in the comments, because part of my purpose of this is today, is live on Instagram, live on here, is just to start the conversation. So I knew that those that joined would hopefully be those that are already kind of involved in all this. Maybe you're new as well, but part of the way I want to shape the future live streams and future content is, gathering the questions that I get on the chats here, but also gathering the questions that you can leave in the comments after the live stream or on other videos. And then with those questions, I can create content and create the future live streams depending on, who the audience is. Is it more teachers? Is it more dancers? Are dance teachers needing to figure out kind of to go through that process of dancing on these timings before they feel comfortable teaching, or they already feel comfortable dancing multiple timings and now they're looking for tools, resources, ideas on how to structure your class and how to teach it. Or maybe you're going to the Dominican Republic, or maybe you are Dominican and interested in this. Now, if you grew up, you're Dominican, you grew up dancing bachata socially, and you're wondering, well, why are we talking about it, all of this? Why are we breaking it down? This is too academic. And I really get that too. I oftentimes get that, those comments, and that's valid. There needs to be a question of like, why even bother talking about that? And I think we addressed that a little bit earlier, but really the need to talk about timing has arose from bachata, just its surge in popularity, both music and dance around the world. And so with that popularity, with its spread, it's being taught, it's being shared in communities all around the world. And within that process of sharing it and teaching it, certain rules, certain assumptions have gone along with that. And one of those assumptions that has traveled is sort of this rule of you start on 1 and you touch on 4. And so this whole conversation is really in response to that. It's saying, well, that's bachata in the Dominican Republic, and even bachata, the bachata basic step, bachata as we know it, did not develop within an ecosystem, within an environment of only dancing it starting on 1. And so countering some of those ideas that, okay, it's wrong to dance on different timings. Plus there's just all the positives, like Isolde mentioned, of adding kind of that freshness, that diversity to songs. But of course there's the advantage of just cultural and personal connections with other people, with different ways to see the music. You may find a timing that you actually prefer, over the one you're dancing now, so that's a possibility, as in my case. Now, I love it all, so I'm not again, it's not one is better or worse. So again, any questions, please share both now and in the future, and we'll keep this discussion going. So thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see y'all soon. Glad that friends got to join. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Take care.